I'd like to start by thanking Sol Mexico for giving me this barrel of coffee this morning. Somehow I got the largest cup, I think, for everybody, so I guess they know that this is, just don't get it between me and a cup of coffee in the morning, so thank you for the barrel of coffee. It's a delight to be here with all of you again this year. I know last time I think I met with you, we were here with Senator Cheney. It was her swan song just before she was leaving office. It's great to be back. I don't know, was that the last time, Badger? Yeah. So it's great to be back again. I think the consultancy will be something I'll talk about briefly, but I'll just start with a couple of things, and if it's all right with you, I'd rather open up the floor for your comments, thoughts, questions, whatever is on your mind, if that's all right. First, I'd like to talk about something that you're hearing a lot coming out of Washington, D.C., and that is sequestration. These are the mandatory budget cuts that have been put into place because of the negotiation that failed to happen by the super committee, if that makes any sense. And sequestration will be across the board cuts in the federal budget unless we can come together in late session and find a way to not have sequestration across the board cuts. It's very troubling for us. Yesterday was at 29 Palms Marine air combat base all day long. The fact that our defense right now would be cut is a problem. It's a problem for our country. I think we saw in India that the world is not a safer place today than it was years ago. And I think we need to do everything we can to save on defense cuts. Secondly, we're hearing a lot about the fiscal cliff. The fiscal cliff means that the January 11 will be a tax hike on every single American family, an average of $4,000 per family. We have to do what we can to avoid the fiscal cliff. What we've included in the language that I guess today the Day of 8 senators is meeting to try to find consensus language to avoid the fiscal cliff again, avoid tax cuts. We have inserted in, or we're trying to insert into this language language that would basically make sure that the empowerment zone remains. As you know, the Mark will tell you, the empowerment zone is something we've had to continue to fight for year after year after year. It's been a blessing that we've had the kind of growth we've had, but it also endangers our empowerment zone status. So we're doing our best to save the empowerment zone designation. Yes. Go ahead, you can clap loud with that. Yes. You and with me, so thank you. And I am happy to welcome Court out here. Court, will you just stand up and let them see you? And thank you for. Court is my housing expert, and he's also my telecommunications expert. He was moved up to telecom, which I don't talk about it a lot when I'm home, but it's one of these issues that's very important in Washington, D.C. If you look at the telecommunications revolution over the past 20 years, you know that we do an awful lot in this space, and that's what Court loves. I tease him. I said, when you were a little boy, what you grew up in? He said, I'm going to grow up and be an expert on FCC law. I don't think that's what he said, but that's what he's doing. So thank you for being here, Court. Mark Trost did say that in 10 days his wife is having a baby. I'm so excited for him because it's a little boy, and Mark is an absolute sports fanatic. And I did something to him this morning that just made him so mad. He's a Raiders fan, so I put a Denver Broncos keychain on his keychain this morning before he noticed. So what I love is, and I always say, if Steve will tell you, when anybody's ever campaigned for office, you see the last 30 days of the campaign feels like the 9th month of pregnancy. Every day just goes on and on and on. You can't see it with feet anymore, you're really tired of it. So Mark decided to actually have a baby during the 9th month of the campaign. And so he's doing two things at once. So Mark, thank you for being here and for all you do. So last thing I will bring up, and then open the floor to your questions, the Salton Sea. As you know, the Salton Sea had a rather rough day a few weeks back. The good news for us is we can use that, I think, to our advantage. And I think the rest of Southern California is now recognizing that if we don't address the Salton Sea, they all will pay the price for the Salton Sea. I have called for 2 congressional hearings. I think they'll be good hearings. One I'd like to do in the Energy and Commerce Committee. We have oversight of the environment. And then another one I'd like to do in the Resources Committee. But you remember with Senator Cheney, we talked about the law that was passed in the QSA where the state said, we will mitigate, we will take responsibility for the Salton Sea. And as we all know, the state is not in great fiscal health, and the state has done nothing for the Salton Sea. And it's time that we we need to wrestle it away from the state, give it back to the locals the way it used to be, and then continue to fight in Alta and Sacramento and Washington, D.C. for appropriate funding. Get together with, I think, housing. We need to bring the private industry into the Salton Sea to really do some outside-the-box thinking on how we clean up the Salton Sea. So I think it was actually a good thing that, that this, the rest of Southern California got the wake-up call. As these water transfers happen to go away from the Salton Sea, which is going to begin in a couple of years, this is going to be a bigger problem for us. And I've always said the Salton Sea to me is not just the fishery and the birds, the Pacific Flyway, but it's the regional impacts on our quality of life and health out here if we do nothing. So it's those regional impacts we need to address, first and foremost, and then after that, try to do our best to save the fish and the birds. But all of us, real estate will suffer, ag will suffer, if the Salton Sea continues to emit odor, and who knows what particular matter might come out of it. So look for these congressional hearings. We might have a field hearing. My hope is to have bring members of Congress out here to see the sea itself, to understand what it is rather than just learn about it in Washington, D.C. So I have gotten great feedback about the willingness to do field hearing and to do other hearings. So stay tuned because we're going to ramp up the pressure a little bit on the Salton Sea. And first and foremost, try to take it away from the state again, give it back to the locals where we can make the decisions ourselves. So with that, happy to take questions, comments, what's on your mind. I kind of abbreviate issues because I really want to hear what you're thinking about and what's important to you. So anybody willing to start with a praying question on her? Thank you, Patrick. Good morning.
When we were back in Washington, D.C. with the U.S. Chamber, we noticed that the House really did a lot. The Senate side basically cut everything off. And, with the president that's currently in office, if that status quo, if there's still going to be nothing that happens.
That's an excellent question. First of all, yes, there have been 39 jobs bills that have been sent over by the House to the Senate that have gone nowhere. I mean, I'm pleased to say that I've been able to pass 3 jobs bills that haven't signed into law. 2, maybe, or is it 2 or 3? 3. So I'm happy to say that I've been able to succeed in getting some signed into law. The rest stand there, ready, waiting. I predict if you see, the question really was if Obama's elected, will we continue to have good law? It depends on the makeup of the House and the Senate, and President Obama's willingness to move these bills and to find common ground with Republicans. So it all depends on the outcome of the elections. I predict that if President Obama is reelected, he will move further to the left, and I think it will be harder and harder for businesses to succeed. Kind of a pivot here, but my concern, the biggest, look, in this congressional district, before the housing crisis, we had a crisis with energy. When gas prices were rising, people in this congressional district were already feeling the pinch significantly. Then the housing crisis piled on as well. But energy prices are a very serious problem in America, not just for the family wallets, but also for businesses. Whatever you're doing, just the cost to get to work and back, or for delivery service to deliver your goods, whatever it is, the cost of energy is a real problem. President Obama has made it harder to produce energy, and I predict that he's not going to get better on producing energy. So I think that's item number 1. Taxes. I think that people fail to recognize that small businesses primarily will be hit the hardest with these tax increases for the fiscal cliff. Obamacare. We were talking about this over here in housing. You have to remember, for those of you in real estate, that in Obamacare there is a tax that if you are a single filer and you have a $250,000 capital gain on your house, you will be taxed with capital gains rate, which will, by the way, increase after January 1 to over 35%. So if you're filing jointly $500,000, that you'll be paying taxes on. Anything over $500,000 of capital gains. So in this market, in this area, anybody who's held onto a house for 20 years who has a capital gains of $250,000 or more is going to be looking at this again and they say, I just can't afford that big capital gains tax. I'm going to wait and sit on it and hope the rates come down in the future. The other thing is you're seeing restaurant chains now say, well, wait a minute, with the Obamacare coming in, all of our employees who work 30 hours or more a week we're going to be responsible for paying. We can't afford this, so we're cutting employees back to 28 hours a week. I mean, there are so many problems with the future if we don't get things back on track. So that's just the beginning, but I don't think energy prices are going to get better. I do not think taxes on businesses are going to get better. And we need to fix those things. So, thank you, Patrick. Yes, sir.
We just kind of ran over a little bit about Obamacare. It's not real. I'm a small business owner in Indio. I have 5 employees. Can you just say that if this goes into effect, that I will have to pay the insurance for my employees?
No, you at 5 employees, you would not. It's 50 and over. But you have to remember, if we're at 49, you certainly don't want to hire 50. If you're trying to grow the economy, you want to hire not only 50, but the 75th and 100th employee as well. But at 5, you would not. But don't forget, your employee would be responsible to have insurance of some sort or based upon by the IRS. Yeah. Anybody else? Oh my goodness. But thank you. At the federal level, we generally speaking do not create job skills that are specific to one area. We try to do the general economy. As you know, you cannot create jobs in one area if the overall national economy isn't doing well. But some of these bills have very strong regional implications. One I'd like to point out over here, there's a dealer that sells ATVs and motorcycles. One of the bills that I passed actually, I think I've talked about this before. There was a lead limit in children's products that was about to go into effect. Now, a children's product is anything. That ceiling fan is not a children's product, but if you put Tinkerbell on it, then it would be a children's product. The lead limit would become so low that you could not manufacture that ceiling fan with Tinkerbell on it. Same thing with motorcycles. There are youth ATV vehicles that are out there manufactured and sold by local businesses that were going to be put out of business if we did not pass this law that gave relief to the lead limit. I jokingly say only a bureaucrat in Washington, D.C. would think that a child is going to jump up and tee on a ceiling fan with Tinkerbell on it, but bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. are so concerned about things like that. Similar to ATVs. Not too many children are gumming on the handlebars of their ATVs, but this specifically impacted the dealership out here, not only the one I visited, but all dealerships in the district. So that's one example that I'm very proud that we did get signed into law. Another thing we're working on, and sometimes I don't, I defy, I guess, my party at times, but there's a great national initiative that I supported over the years. It's Travel USA. It's to promote tourism in the United States. Now, on the federal level, again, I can't pick and choose. We'll only promote tourism to the Coachella Valley, but it is for all of the United States. Scott White, I hope you've met Scott White. I hope you haven't come before your group to talk about tourism. But he is one of the most talented, knowledgeable people about tourism I think that I've ever met. He heads up the Convention and Visitors Bureau out of Rancho Mirage that represents the entire valley. He testified before the Congress, and I strongly believe that with this strong tourism piece that is promoted nationally to the rest of the world, that the Coachella Valley does stand to benefit because we are so organized with our CBDs, both the Palm Springs and then the Valley-wide one. So that's another example of things that I believe will directly impact our district. But in housing and real estate, and you said it, it's hard right now because we're not building the job base, broadening the economic base that we need to do out here. If you look at the overall trend of the Coachella Valley over the past 25 years since I've been here, it's very positive, and it's still difficult at times, there's no doubt about it. But 25 years ago, Palm Canyon used to roll up the sidewalks in the summer and everything was closed without fishing signs in the windows. And now we're a year-round economy. We need to continue to do all we can to diversify our job base in order for the housing market to recover. We can do that by community efforts on raising quality of life in our communities. To me, expanding, increasing the job base is tourism and ag now. This bill will help with tourism. I passed a bill that helps with agriculture and country of origin labeling. That labels produce simply made in the USA. I mean, if it says made in the USA, the consumer will choose it or something made elsewhere. But other than that, we need to continue to broaden. As the home builder will tell you, that we cannot sustain ourselves simply on the trades and on building. Once people build these houses, we need to give them jobs that are lasting jobs and lasting opportunity to do that. So, long-winded answer to a quick question, but nobody else is raising their hands, so I'm just filibustering. I need some room somewhere. Yes.
I understand the wind energy subsidies may be repealed or stopped at the end of the project, and if they are not renewed, what effect is that going to have on the forces of the job?
That's a great question. It's called the production tax credit, and there is controversy over it. In my feeling is if you're going to subsidize energies, I think if we're going to subsidize wind, subsidize oil. We're not going to subsidize wind, then don't subsidize oil. I'm fine with that. The government should pick and choose the fuels. But in California, in our wind farms specifically, I think we're shielded from what we call the PTC because we have 80-32, where we have to, the government, Sacramento has decided that we have to buy a certain percentage of our power from renewables. So there is a drive to build more renewables. We need more renewables to meet the mandates in 80-32. So the production will continue. But as far as the PTC, let's stay tuned after November. What drives me crazy is every once in a while, these fuel debates are more about political debates based upon regions than anything else. I don't believe in ethanol. I think ethanol is a bad fuel. Anybody who has a boat will tell you ethanol even kills your engine. And I don't believe we should be pushing ethanol onto the American people unless it's really a great fuel that makes sense. But ethanol happens to come from Iowa, and ethanol tends to be a favorite of politicians because Iowa, as we know, is first in the presidential caucuses. I think that's a mistake. I think I've always fought against ethanol. I don't believe it's an answer, and I think it helps on the food prices. So stay tuned on the PTC and see what happens after November. Yes, sir.
Actually, we got states that have questions. Especially manufacturers down here, and we lobbied for state grant, and got we're actually on our third state grant. Now, we're trying to expand and we work in actually the enterprise zones. I think anybody that doesn't know about it should get to know about it. So I've done that. The question I have, where would we want to contact? And the grant we got was using recycled tires into our products, which we actually make out of recycled down in Southern California. Where would be the focal point for people to look at this grant money? Because we've got lots of work to strategy, but as money flows through here, that helps develop our production, and also money flows through second develop the workforce here.
Thank you. That's a great story and a great question, and I appreciate it. We have a staff person in my office who specializes in grant funding from the federal level. His name is Bill Berger, and I think it's important that everybody know that these grants do exist. What I try to say to people, if you have a business or an idea, go look at the grant, look at grants that are out there, spend time getting to know them, and then go back and figure out how your business can work into the grants. And then, if you have a grant writer, that's very important. But go sit down with Bill Berger in our office. There's a huge book. It's this big. It covers soup to nuts. And take a look. And if something like that, I don't know if there would be a Department of Energy concept or a grant up there or EPA grant. I have no idea. But there's a book this thick, and I know that by you looking through it, you might think of some great ideas. And we're very successful option grant funding throughout the district on bringing grants home. So I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you.
Bringing those products out to governmental levels and military and
cannot decide or pick and choose those products any longer. But there are people in the DoD who you should get in front of and show your product to. We're happy to put you in front of those people and do what we can to connect you. I can't guarantee success or promise success in any way, shape, or form, but we're definitely happy to put you right in front of the right people. I just want to point out for those people who aren't familiar with this process, years ago, the Pentagon did not want the UAVs or the drones. The Pentagon said no, and Congress said yes. And we won that fight, and now we're using UAVs everywhere for defense purposes. So every once in a while, people come to the Congress, show us great ideas, and we put them forward, and they turn out to be quite successful. So happy to work with you on that. It wouldn't be a grant, but it would be putting you in front of the right people to display your product. So thank you. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for what you do. Thank you, and thank you. I mean, you are the center point for so many charities, so thank you for what you do. A couple thoughts on this. Again, under sequestration, there will be budget cuts across the board. I would anticipate some of those coming through USDA, of course. I don't know whether they would send that to food stamps or where they would put it, but I would, of course, expect a tightening out there. That being said, I am very troubled by the fact that twice as many people are on food stamps now as were 4 years ago. The way we fix that is not by more food stamps. We need to create more jobs. We need to get people out working again. We need to grow this economy. And everything that I've said today, these are little examples of what we're doing that is choking this economy, not growing this economy. And I'm convinced that we can get that number back down to a sustainable level if we create jobs in America. We have to do that. The goal needs to be to cut that in half because people have jobs again. So that's what we need to focus on immediately. And thank you. There needs to be reforms to foreign aid going forward. Absolutely. There needs to be strings attached. I think that it's a mistake. His question is are there any reforms to foreign aid given all that is going on in the Middle East? We have to completely reassess foreign aid. We cannot think that by sending foreign aid and American tax dollars to countries that are proven that they're not pro-American, we cannot think that we're buying friends because we're not. And we have to reassess it, especially remembering that 40 cents of every dollar that we spend, we're borrowing, either from future generations or from other countries. That America will be paying for that. So I am wholeheartedly behind looking at Egypt, Pakistan. By the way, I don't know, the women in the crowd, there was a 14-year-old Pakistani girl yesterday who was shot by the Taliban because she stands for education for girls. That is terrifying to me. The Taliban are increasing their strength in Pakistan, they're increasing their strength in Afghanistan again, and this is just an example of what we're up against. But I will be reluctant to support foreign aid right now to Egypt and Pakistan. And there used to be a big need. I've said this, it's a huge mistake that this president has put light of day between us and Israel. I think this president has shown that we are not as strong as we need to be in protecting Israel. And I think a lot of these problems come out of that he has acted like an apologist. After the attack on Ambassador Stevens in Libya, we retaliated by sending over a video trying to explain the First Amendment to the terrorists. So this is not the way to a peaceful future. And so maybe the foreign aid will be looking at it. That's Mark.
Expand on the empowerment zone. While on the enterprise zone, that state tax credits, these houses, folks like Mr. Scratch, everyone that's in here, manufacturing, creating jobs. The empowerment zone side, I want to say, first off, thank you for all
creating a job and hiring an employee. In my mind, it's been very successful. We've moved people out to areas that they wouldn't have looked at otherwise for some reasons, and we need to continue it. I think it would be very hurtful if we don't. I think it's very advantageous if we have it, but it'll be hurtful if we lose it. So basically, to me, you reward people who take risks and create jobs, and that's what it does. So in a nutshell, you probably know more about the nuts and bolts than I do, but the way I see it is it assists people, it thanks them for creating jobs, and helps reduce some of the risk because they're creating jobs and getting a tax credit for doing that. So I think it's a very good thing. So there are about 18 hands up a second. Can I answer everybody's question all at once?
Yes.
Anybody? Wow. All right, well, let me just close by thanking you for being here, and again, thanking the restaurant for the large cup of coffee. I love the Coachella Valley. I'm very bullish on the Coachella Valley. I think things are they're going to do very well. My new congressional district takes back in Desert Hot Springs, which I'm so thankful for. Desert Hot Springs is a part of the Coachella Valley and should be a part of the Coachella Valley in the congressional district. We also take back in Banning, Beaumont, Cherry Valley, the Pass area, and San Jacinto. I'm very encouraged. I think this is a great, compact congressional district. I think it's going to be good for us and good for us all. And other than that, thank you for listening to me today and turning out. I think I get to hang out for a little while, so if you want to talk to me, if you're the kind of person I used to be where I was too shy to ask the question in front of people, I'll stick around and I'm happy to take questions or comments in person. So thank you very much, Jim, and thanks for having me.